of extrajudicial killing, let me be very clear on this. The propaganda that was used in the past about extrajudicial killing was dismantled. There was an entire publication, I think, in Starbuck News of every single name and the reasoning behind and the analysis of every single name. In that list, they did not have only Afro-Guyanese. So I'm not going to go back to a position with a false basis. This has been proven. The narrative that was created about extrajudicial killing was a disgusting narrative aimed at discrediting the PPP civic government. It was a disgusting narrative aimed at discrediting the PPP civic government. It has no basis, it was not factual, and we have dismantled this. And for a very long time, it did not come up back after that publication, because the world saw that this was just used as a political tool to discredit the PPP. Our vision in government is to bring this country together. Our vision in government is to develop Guyana in a peaceful environment, in an environment in which every Guyanese enjoys prosperity. So let me start from that. So you can't return to something that never existed. You can't, if you're starting from a foundation of lies, you can't return to the foundation of lies. So I'm not going to go beyond that in responding to this, because there's no basis to respond to it. It has been dismantled. It is a foundation of lies. And I'm not going to return to something that never existed in the first place. Thank you. In terms of extrajudicial.
Badam, badam, babanana, babanamapa, dam, babanam, badam, I know some of you wouldn't believe me, but if a lie asked my good friend Mackie, it was a big lying competition to see who the Will Crown as lying champion. Liars from all parts of the West Indies, big shot liars from all them foreign countries. From a feel about 1,000 or so entry in 2 days, he boiled down and leave just 3. I had me eye on Lion the Lion, because I know he does come with some good ones. But they had a younger fella named Debo, come from some village here in Tobago. He say his father is Tobago's best fisherman. Catch a fish a mile wide, 80 feet in span. He had to tighten the boat and swim back to land to get the brother Eric to give him a hand. You hear lie? That is lie. Lie. You hear lie? Teacher Percy said if you tell a lie, you're going to hell as soon as you die. Yeah. Yeah. Liar the lion, he laughed till he sweat. He said, Mr. Debo, and say nothing yet. If you really want to hear about fishing, let me blow your mind. Now listen to something. When you're talking about fish, you just hit this spot. I was hoping you did, believe it or not. The fish your father caught, to you it was great, but the them small fish my father does use for bait. Lion went ahead on points in the show, complete eliminated Mr. Debo. The next man to beat was Willie Outrageous. He asked the judges if he could lie first. The judges asked Lion, the Lion agreed. say any topic we'll pick is alright with me. He outrageous I strong, let we meet head on, and when we done see you fit to wear the crown, your hair lie.
That is lie, lie, your hair lie.
Teacher Moses say
If you tell a lie, you're going to hell as soon as you die.
The outrageous say he knew a tailor come to making suit. The man is a master. If you show him a man going round a corner, he could make him a suit and don't even measure. I'm talking about suit, sitting down correct, expertly made and fitting perfect. He used to sew for Shakespeare, make suit for Hamlet, and up to this day, he yet make a mistake yet. You know the crowd went wild. They couldn't cool down. I say liar, the lion losing the crown. The judges brought the crowd back to order and asked the lion to lie about the tailor. He said, my man is the best. Rolf is his name. Cotton cloth, making suit is his game. Don't show him the man. My tailor is class. Just show him the corner where the fella pass and he go make a suit. That is tailor. You hear lie? King liar.
Teacher Percy said if you tell a lie, you're going to hell as soon as you die.
Why, sir? That is lie.
Teacher Percy said if you tell a lie, you're going to hell as soon as you die.
Good evening to you. Welcome to Politics 101. That's the Lord Nelson out of Tobago. And he's 91. 91. He was doing that at a backyard party in Brooklyn this past Labor Day weekend. Lord Nelson, Teacher Percy say, if you tell a lie, you're going to hell as soon as you die. My generation grew up with that in the 1970s. And, you know, we used to get all them lion man in the village and you pay them for them or you interfere with them big man. You were like, lie. And Teacher Percy said, well, yeah, is he a big man? I mean, you all listened before that to the president of this country, extrajudicial killing. No extrajudicial killing. What are you talking about? The man is lying through his teeth. Them lie man that Nelson talk about, they can't lie with our president. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. How the man could lie with a straight face with suit and tie on. I mean, it's amazing. That's what we want to talk about. He's lying about judicial killing because he wants to lie about the killing of or in Boston, and because he wants to lie about what his government has been doing to Guyana since they were handed power last August. Here's what we're going to do tonight. I have two guests. Sharon Holder, who was here with us last week, giving us an update, and I promise I'll bring him back this week. Because I want to keep that matter alive. Nobody has been charged yet. Promises have been made. All we are hearing is what's going to the police complaints authority and so on. And they're hoping that we forget. But Politics 101 is going to keep this issue alive. And I'm going to have this young man as my regular guest because he's the man on the ground. And of course, people who are on the ground are the ones who can give you accurate information. We want to hear what the people are saying, what's happening as far as the investigation is concerned. What is it people are now learning, because new information is coming out on this murder? And so Brother Sherwin Holder, who's the member of parliament from the opposition bench there, and you know, you all always say the MPs don't work hard, so we're going to make sure we work Sherwin hard to do real MP work. Sherwin, welcome again to Politics 101.
Good night, Dr. Hines. Good night.
You hear live with the president there just
now?
I
heard it. I actually watched that press conference, and I was shocked with the statement and the sentiments being expressed by the president.
You think those liars that Lord Nelson talk about, you think they could make the grade with that man?
Who the cap fits, Dr. Hines. And I think in this case, the cap fits the fellow on the screen. You know, I am a young man. I was in school at President's College in the times of the Troubles. So I had to pass through the Upper East Coast area there, Buxton, and so in those times when you had those, you know, those riots. And so I remember those times pretty clearly, and they went on for a long period. I was already in university, or about to go to university, I think, back in 2003, when you had that youth, Johanse Douglas. I can clearly remember that name. That one sticks with me because as a young Guyanese, myself and my friends, we were really startled by that that horrific incident there involving Johanse Douglas. I believe he was he was a university student, and if my memory serves me right, he was going home after a game of basketball.
Right.
The police approached them, couple of youths in a vehicle, and they shot him. I can't remember if other youths were injured. I believe others were injured also, but Johanse was killed. And the simple excuse was made that they thought that they had some kind of arms and ammunition or something like that, which was ridiculous for UG students going home after a game of basketball. But it's what we saw that happen so many times, in so many instances in that era. And now, unfortunately, we're back into that era once again, I believe.
Yes, Sherwin, you know, before I ask you what's happening there on the coast, I want you to give me a personal response, because sometimes we deal with the political and assume that the political is the personal. We don't. As a young man, as a young black man, what does this murder of somebody close to you in your part of the world, what does it say to you psychologically? How are you dealing with it?
Dr. Hines, that's a topic for itself, and I can go on to say so much about it. But as a young Afro Guyanese, and I do come from a mixed family, mind you. My mother is actually Indian, but I'm generally termed as an Afro and as an Afro Guyanese, and I have no problem with that. I grew up in an Afro community, and I have lots of my friends, mind you, are Indo Guyanese. I have lots of very good friends as Indo Guyanese that I went to school with, but it affects you in many different ways. You know, the first question is, why is it that, and this is my thought, why is it that only in Afro-Guyanese communities you see these kinds of things being perpetrated? This kind of extrajudicial killing, this kind of harassment by the police force. Why is it that it's only in Afro-Guyanese communities that these things occur? You know, and that to my mind tells a lot. It tells a lot about the state. And mind you, this happens when a particular party is in government. It happens when a particular party is in government. And so it tells you about the force. It tells you about the policies of the of the government. And you know, as a young boy growing up in an Afro-Guyanese community, naturally you would feel unsafe. You'd feel unsafe. I felt very much unsafe in the past. In the past, I felt very unsafe. You had some uncertainty. You lived with something, with a cloud over your head, so to speak, that at any moment something can happen. You know, if you're on the corner, and my mother used to always warn me about hanging at you know, young Afro guys like to hang out on the corner, hang at, you know, at a bridge or something, and you would catch up and you would gaff and that kind of thing. But my mother always sort of kept me away from that because of what is prevalent in these communities. What would normally happen? Quickly, the police would come in, and something can easily go wrong, as it did in so many communities, and you end up with you know, youths being either arrested or worse, being shot and killed. So I particularly stayed away from that. But I know that had a great impact on the lives of many youths within these Afro-Guyanese communities.
Yeah, yeah. The funeral
And
was.
if I can add one thing,
Yes, go ahead.
Heinz, and what it does, it creates a resentment in the mind of Afro-Guyanese youths. It creates a hate for the police, which is not good, which is generally not good, but it creates that kind of hate for the police. So you know, it widens that gap. There's much distrust in the Afro-Guyanese communities because of these incidents.
Yes, yes, yes. Well said. The funeral was on Friday.
Friday, yes.
It was quite an emotional scene. Those of us who were able to look at it and the various lives and so forth, we saw people being very emotional. Describe for our audience what were the sentiments there on Friday.
Dr. Hines, first of all, you had hundreds upon hundreds of persons attending that funeral. You had a mixture of youth. You had a lot. Orin is a young man, so naturally you had a lot of youth there, and but also you had a lot of senior persons, older, elderly persons, all walks of life, people from all walks of life. What I was happy about, because I'm a person that is always conscious of the race relations in Guyana and the troubles that we have with that. And so I was very happy to see lots and lots of Indo-Guyanese, males, female, old, young, attending and even weeping there for Orin. And it tells you a lot about the type of person that he was. He was a person that, you know, got along with everyone. He didn't have race. He didn't have color. You know, he was a person that was loved by everyone. And so this death naturally affected a huge section of the population across the region. I spoke with a popular Indo-Guyanese, they're very popular businessman who attended that funeral. I was surprised to see him there because he's not usually on the road. You don't ever see him anywhere, really. He's a home person. And I was surprised to see him there. And, you know, quietly he expressed his shock and what he believed actually happened. And, you know, on the ground, you're hearing most persons believe that the state had a role to play. And that was much of what you were hearing, the discussions. When you move around that funeral, you were hearing a lot of these sentiments. You had persons asking, and person actually approached me as the member of parliament and said, you know, Mr. Holder, will Orin ever get justice? And that's a very hard question for me to answer. Even family members approached me and said, you know, will we get justice for Orin? And that's a very, very difficult question, because we know that the PPP is in government. And whenever they are in government, and from the attitude that you're seeing now, you have Irfan saying that it's propaganda. You have Irfan saying it's propaganda. There was never any judicial killing. So if we start from, I put it in his words, if you start from that foundation, because he mentioned foundation, he said foundation, and if you start from that foundation, that you're dismissing it, an investigation, the investigation is not yet complete, as far as I know, and if you're saying no to the public that these are all lies and you never had extrajudicial killing, well, we see where it's going. And so coming back to the funeral, those were the sentiments you were hearing. On the ground, you're hearing people talking about different motives of the police. I would refrain from mentioning them, but you're hearing different motives. We're hearing persons identifying certain officers that would have played a role in Orin's murder. So a lot is coming out, from persons close to this case. But what we are not hearing is very much from the government. We are not hearing very much officially from the police force, because as it is now, we've not heard anything at all. I think that the plan here is to have us forget, ease the tension, and have us forget. It's similar to what happened in the case of the Henry boys.
Yes. And Sharon, you hit the nail on the head there. They want us to forget. And I have made up my mind that I'm not forgetting anymore. And so far as I have a voice, so far as I have a microphone, I'm going to use it to remember. Because in remembering what happened to Orin, we are defending ourselves. It's part of self-defense. That you repeat your narrative of suffering. You hold it up in front of you. So it becomes a barricade against those who would want to murder our young men. Let me ask you this, Sherwin. Have you heard anything that was Orin politically involved?
There's a lot of talk on the ground, but what I know about him, he was not involved politically in any way. At least I am a central executive member of the PNC, and I could tell you he wasn't involved, at least with the PNC, at any level. Where you can point him out to say, well, look, he had connections with the PNC. I don't know if he was connected in any way. There a lot of talk on the ground. I'm not sure that he was connected in any way with the PPP or any other political party. What I do know is that he was a young man, a family guy, 2 kids. He was what you could term, I don't want to call him a hustler, but somebody who was pushing to develop himself as a young man, right? He was pushing to develop himself, and for the sake of his family, obviously. So he was a young businessman. We don't know him to having any brushes with the law. We don't know that he was wanted by the police or anything of that sort. So, and I believe that is why this case is so, it hurts people so much, because this wasn't a guy that was wanted. This was a guy that was loved by many. And the way, the horrific way, how they came, how they entered his home. Look, if there is some talk that they were searching for some prohibited items, namely arms and ammunition, I don't know if that is true. I can't confirm that is true. But in any case, they had sufficient time for a squad to come, for the SWAT team to come from in Georgetown, to travel all the way in Georgetown. They could have secured a search warrant, a simple search warrant, and conduct a search on Orin's business. They had his home staked out. They could have arrested him at any point in time. And that is why I am convinced that this is bigger than just a search, because to my mind and to the mind of most Guyanese who are following this case, there's a greater motive here, because he could have been arrested quite easily. You could have even at 4 a.m. they could have called him out. They had his home surrounded. They could have called him out and said, "Look, Orin, we have a search warrant, or we don't have a search warrant, but we want to come into your home and conduct a search because we understand that you have XYZ." But that never happened. It never happened. And I want to go back to this point, Dr. Hines. We spoke about it last week. Firstly, I learned that the case is with the Police Complaints Authority. We would never know what is being discussed there. The particulars of the investigation, we will never know. We'll just hear some statement in the end. But I'll go back to this point. I firmly believe that the entire unit should have been on lockdown. Firstly, I believe that the shooter should have been arrested and placed in custody as any ordinary Guyanese, given the facts. I also believe that whoever told that lie, whoever in the unit, whether it's the commander for the unit, the officer that was there, whoever told that lie that there was some kind of struggle, they should be investigated. They should have been arrested, because the evidence points to something totally different. Yes. And so it leads me to another point. Justice, to my mind, in this case, cannot mean only the shooter being what I would say charged for maybe a manslaughter charge or something to that effect. That is not the type of justice that the family deserves. Justice would go beyond that. Justice in this case would mean that the intellectual authors are exposed and brought to justice also. It would, I see it going as far as the unit, whoever has to be disciplined when you determine if there were breaches in the standing operational procedures, the SOPs for the SWAT. If there were breaches, you would determine what level of disciplinary action you would take. If somebody needs to be fired from the force, then I believe that would send a very strong message. There might be others who need to lose rank. There are others who might need to be suspended. And so if you see that kind of thing happening, with including the shooter being charged for murder, then I think it would be a much fairer position. It would be a fair position to say that, look, at least some level of justice is being served here. I would go even further than that, Dr. Hines, if you allow me.
Yes,
I think that justice in this case would also mean that the government commits to some kind of assistance for his kids. Justice would mean that the wife and family are given counseling, all these things. But it doesn't seem to me as though the government, and I'm pinpointing the government now, they're the policy makers for the police force and they have a role to play here. It doesn't seem that they intend to do anything. It doesn't seem that way to me. Mm-hmm. I would have expected by now you would have heard from the women in the PPP, the female ministers, and specifically Dr. Vidya Prasad, who is in charge of social services. I would think that she would have come out and give some support to the mother, give some support to the family, give some support to the children. I would have expected that she would have condemned it. I would have expected that Robeson Ben, who is the chief policymaker for the police force, I would have expected that he would have made a statement condemning this barbaric act. It took him about 4 days to say something about the standing orders of the force and if any were breached. But then I see a retired assistant commissioner debunking that. So, generally we see where this is going. And I believe it is all these things that are happening that is leading people to firmly believe or to further believe that this is an extrajudicial killing. The state is actively trying to cover.
Yes, cover up. Sherwin, let me ask you 2 questions. In our society, there are always competition between and among business people. People who are in one area of business, usually there are conflicts with people in that area. I understand Mr. Boston was in the nightclub business and so on. And are you hearing that he was in competition with any other people who are in the same line of business?
You're hearing those sentiments. You're certainly hearing those sentiments. Exactly what you said. In his line of business and what he was doing, there's competition and persons who could have been jealous of him, could have felt a way that he was progressing because the guy had a nice little place. I was even surprised, how well he had his place. And so naturally you would have had that kind of thing. But I still don't think that that would have warranted the kind of action.
Well,
Going back to what I said last week, the general feeling is that something was discussed between the private sector and Ali. Right. I am quite certain about that. And however it played out, this is what happened. And that is why you don't get a condemnation from the president. You don't get a condemnation from the minister.
And you don't get a condemnation from the various members of commerce. Let me ask the last question. Last week reported that protests were called off because the family requested it after visits from the commissioner and the minister and so on. What's the situation as far as protests are concerned? What are you hearing?
I'm still trying to get the real reason why it was called off, and I'll get down to the bottom of it. But generally on the ground, persons are a bit annoyed. Persons are a bit annoyed within the community because they see this as being something bigger than Boston, something bigger than Orin. And what they're saying is that, today is Orin, tomorrow, who else it be? They have tried, the protesters have tried their best to honor the requests of the family. And so for the time being, they are a little quiet on it. Much talks is still going on. There is a talk of Irfan. He announced it actually that he wanted to come and see the family. People are getting very high-tempered with that. Since they heard that, I think, formally speaking, I think the village will react in some way should Irfan venture into the community, because the first thing they're saying is that he did the same thing when you had the Henry Boyce killing. You had him there and he made certain pledges and certain commitments, and then within days or weeks later you had the family being harassed by the police and being arrested by the police. You had a denial of the forensic personnel that they brought. You had no cooperation from the police force, And in the end, I think they got nothing. They got nothing. So it is the people of Dartmouth are looking at that case, and I think the family also are looking at it. I don't believe that the family, I can't speak on their behalf, but I can't speak on behalf of the immediate family, but I've spoken with some relatives, and naturally speaking, they don't appreciate Irfan coming to the community, at least not at this time.
Thing. There you have it, Sharon Holder reporting to us on what's happening there at Dartmouth and on the Essequibo coast in the wake of the murder of Orrin Boston. In case you're just joining us, we'll have Aubrey Norton standing by to come on. And Sharon, before I bring on Aubrey, is there any last word you want to give us?
I would want to I'd want to firstly thank civil society, those who have commented positively on this case. I noticed a number of persons in the print media and also in the on social media. I'm not a relative of Boston, but I can tell you I appreciate the outpouring, the love that I saw, and the coming together of all Guyanese on this matter. And it is my hope that in the coming days and weeks, we continue to keep our eyes on this matter, and we don't forget, as you put it, we don't simply forget about it, and it goes down as another extrajudicial killing that is unsolved by the state. So
Right.
we need to keep the fire under the feet of the government, and ultimately the goal here is to get justice for the Boston family.
Justice for the
I
Boston
want
family.
all Guyanese to continue to follow this matter and to continue to lend support to the family and the people of Dartmouth.
Thank you very much, MP Sharon Holder. I'm going to be calling on you from time to time. And so for you to come on to keep us updated on what's happening in that part of the country. Thanks again for coming. And there we have it. Member of Parliament Sharon Holder keeping us updated on what's happening there. We're going to take a break, listen to Irfan, the president, lying about extrajudicial killings. We listen to Lord Nelson giving him.
Killing. Let me be very clear on this. The propaganda that was used in the past about extrajudicial killing was dismantled. There was an entire publication, I think, in Starbuck News of every single name and the reasoning behind and the analysis of every single name. In that list, they did not have only Afro-Guyanese. So I'm not going to go back to a position with a false basis. This has been proven. The narrative that was created about extrajudicial killing was a disgusting narrative aimed at discrediting the PPP civic government. It was a disgusting narrative aimed at discrediting the PPP civic government. It has no basis. It was not factual. And we have dismantled this. And for a very long time, it did not come up back after that publication, because the world saw that this was just used as a political tool to discredit the PPP. Our vision in government is to bring this country together. Our vision in government is to develop Guyana in a peaceful environment, in an environment in which every Guyanese enjoys prosperity. So let me start from that. So you can't return to something that never existed. You can't, if you're starting from a foundation of lies, you can't return to the foundation of lies. So I'm not going to go beyond that in responding to this because there's no basis to respond to it. It has been dismantled. It is a foundation of lies. And I'm not going to return to something that never existed in the first place. Thank you.
Well, Lord Nelson answered him. Let's hear Lord Nelson on King Liar. King Liar. Lord Nelson saw this guy a long time ago. Teacher Percy say, if you tell a lie, orphan, you're going to hell as soon as you die. That's what Lord Nelson. Let's get Lord Nelson.
I know some of you wouldn't believe me, but if a lie asked me good friend Mackie, it was a big lying competition to see who the will crown as lying champion. Liars from all parts of the West Indies, big shot liars from all them foreign countries. From a field about 1,000 or so entry in 2 days, he boiled down and leave just 3. I had me eye on Liar the Lion, because I know he does come with some good ones. But they had a younger fella named Debo, come from some village here in Tobago. He say his father is Tobago's best fisherman. Catch a fish a mile wide, 80 feet in span. He had to tighten the boat and swim back to land to get his brother Eric to give him a hand. You hear lie? That is lie. Lie. You hear lie?
Teacher Percy said if you tell a lie, you're going to hell as soon as you die.
Yeah. Liar the Lion, he laughed till he sweat. He said, Mr. Debo, ain't say nothing yet. If you really want to hear about fishing, let me blow your mind. Now listen to something. When you're talking about fish, you just hit this spot. I was hoping you did believe it or not. The fish your father caught, to you it was great. But the them small fish my father does use for bait. Lion went ahead on points in the show, complete eliminated Mr. Debo. The next man to beat was Willie Outrageous. He asked the judges if he could lie first. The judges asked Lion, the Lion agreed. Say any topic we'll pick is alright with me. He outrageous I strong. Let we meet head on, and when we done see you fit to wear the crown. You hear lie?
That is lie. Lie. You hear lie? Teacher Percy say if you tell a lie, you're going to hell as soon as you die.
The outrageous said he knew a tailor come to making suit. The man is a master. If you show him a man going around a corner, he could make him a suit and don't even measure. I'm talking about suit, sitting down correct, expertly made and fitting perfect. He used to sew for Shakespeare, make suit for Hamlet, and up to this day, he yet make a mistake yet. You know the crowd went wild. They couldn't cool down. I say Liar the Lion losing the crowd. The judges brought the crowd back to order and asked the Lion to lie about the tailor. He said, my man is the best. Rolf is his name. Cotton cloth, making suit is his game. Don't show him the man. My tailor is class. Just show him the corner where the fella pass and he go make a suit. That is tailor. You hear lie? King Liar.
Teach of mercy, say if you tell a lie, you're going to hell as soon as you die.
Why, sir? That is life. Teach
Of mercy, say if you tell a lie, you're going to hell as soon as you die.
Lord Nelson there out of Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago, really anticipating President Irfaan Ali. I don't think Irfaan, I don't think those liars could have lied with Irfaan. Irfaan certainly is the king of all liars. Those of you who know, Lord Nelson sent him a note and tell him he needs to write a new stanza to that calypso. King liar, teacher Percy say if you lie, you're going to hell as soon as you die. Irfaan, I hope you're hearing. I know your people are watching this show. They'll watch because Aubrey Norton is coming on, and they always want to see if they will get something to put out there. So I know they're watching this show. We're asking Lord Nelson to do a stanza on a liar called Irfaan Ali. Aubrey Norton. Aubrey Norton, you there?
Evening. Yes,
Good evening, my brother. Can we get
good
Aubrey on the
evening.
screen? Thank you.
Good
Go ahead,
evening
Aubrey.
to you. Good evening to you and your listening audience. Permit me first of all to express condolences to the family of Imran Khan. It's been a great loss. I have worked personally with Imran, and I can attest to his competence and the pleasant character that anyone would want to work with. And so for the coalition, I believe it is a blow, a serious blow, that there will be problems replacing him. So my condolences to the entire Imran Khan family and to the entire coalition family.
Thank you very much, Aubrey. And I want to establish I want to endorse what you said. I have known Imran since 1999 when he first came up as a young university student to Washington, D.C., visiting the OAS. And I had the pleasure of interviewing him for a program that I moderated in Washington, D.C., a TV program. And I've known him through the years, a pleasant young man and very competent. And certainly it's a big loss to the coalition and a big loss to the communication community. So I want to add my voice and that of Politics 101. Aubrey, you were one of the first persons to react to Irfaan Ali's statement that we played there just now. And what prompted you when you heard that man said there were no judicial killings? What went through your mind?
That he's a barefaced liar. You know, I take some objection to Liar the Liar being played linked to him, because in Liar the Liar there is imagination. You know, in Irfaan Ali, there's the absence of common sense. And so I think we're doing the calypso an injustice. Here's a calypsonian showing his ability, his artistic skills in terms of fashioning elements into lies that are acceptable and understandable as being satirical. But then when it comes to Irfaan Ali, there's a lack of imagination. There's a marked disrespect. It is evident that he is barefaced. He knows full well that there are extrajudicial killings. And then to highlight the stupidity, he refers to something in Stabrook News that explains it. But by the very fact of saying that, He is saying that it exists. And so there is a kind of an intellectual infancy, if the word intellect can go with it, that should be underscored. No, look, I've heard all the comments about him not having a proper degree, etc. But this comes down to bare stupidity. That's the reality.
Aubrey, we have been in this political thing for a long time, and politicians do lie. I mean, we some more barefaced than others. But where has this man been? I mean, from 1992 to 2015. I mean, these things have been documented. I remember the joint opposition, JOP, I think they call themselves the opposition parties, compiling all of these things in one document. And that man, in the face of a shooting that took the life of an ordinary citizen, is saying that, look, all that stuff is lie. How does that, what does that tell you about his attitude to this recent killing?
There are a number of issues that emerge. If you send out a police squad, there must be someone, some senior officer, who is knowledgeable of the persons in the squad. That's the first point. The second point of fact is that this squad goes to Boston's home. And this squad, at least one person from the squad would have shot and killed him in his bed. Now, it means, therefore, that the police knows who is the killer. Do not tell me that you send out 6, 7, 8 people. A man is murdered, executed, and they come back and none of the persons could say who did it. And so right away, we know that the government is complicit in it because they know full well who the shooter is. They can argue that they don't know the motive, etc. But they must of necessity know that who the shooter is. First thing. The second critical thing to note here is the Ghana police force is supposed to be protecting people in the society. We mean the house yet. We mean the house, just protecting communities. Now, this Ghana police force has not only failed to protect the communities, but it behaved like a bandit in the night and went into a citizen's house and execute that citizen. Now, having executed that citizen, you first attempted to cover it up. When it is recognized that it is beyond cover up, because the evidence emerged as to what happened, you then plead for peace. Now, it is clear that the Ghana police force and the government are complicit in the murder, in the execution of Orrin Boston. Now let's come to Irfaan Ali. He said the foundation has been dismantled. He dismantled the facts. He dismantled fact. All and sundry are aware of the facts of this case. And a president, even though installed, is talking about a foundation of lies when he is lying. Irfaan Ali cannot say to us he never heard of the execution of Shaka Blair. If he claimed he had any contact with university, including the University of Guyana, he must have heard of Johann C. Douglas. And therefore, clearly he's a pathological liar. Now, what he has allowed is, first of all, they politicize the Guyana police force. And having politicized the Guyana police force, clearly they open the door towards the police returning to rogue behavior. And mind you, not all policemen. Clearly, this is a special squad linked to rogues, and they are in control of the rogues. If you listen to the commissioner, you will gain the impression that he knew nothing of what happened. And so the government must know who is the henchman they use to do what they're doing. But what is critical is the police that should be protecting communities and home. The police has violated the community of Dartmouth, violated the Boston's home, and took violence into the home when there should be the people that are responsible for ensuring there isn't violence. And so we are at a really sad and bad place where a government is compelled to defend a heinous crime, a crime that it is obvious to all, inclusive of Stevie Wonder, that this man was murdered. And so I think we have got to take this thing in context. This clearly is an act of extrajudicial killing, because the institution with the authority to order the death of anyone in the society, and it is not just to order the death, it has to be for a violation of certain laws, example, murder. No court declared Boston as being involved in crime, committed murder, and therefore should be killed. And to the extent he was killed without a judicial process, Irfaan Ali cannot be so stupid that he doesn't know it is extrajudicial killing. I accept he might not be able to pronounce words, but at least he has a modicum of common sense to know that any killing that is not sanctioned by law is extrajudicial killing. And therefore, they have been, and now extrajudicial killing is back in Guyana. That, I think, is the reality. But before I go, I want to add one thing. One must note the similarity between the execution of Tree and Lindman and the execution of Orrin Boston. It came at dark. And it is not by accident that the police operated at dark. I think they had hoped to do what they hoped to do, get away with it, and then cover it up. And so we are now in a situation where one of the key perpetrators of violence is the Guyana police force.
The Guyana police force, and you're right about the similarities. I remember well, you and I were on that bridge on that day, and you remember, was it Hicken was trying to get you and I to clear the people off the bridge, and I remember you telling him that that's not your job. You didn't put them there. And there's police. And he kept bugging us all day to get the people. And it was at that point, Aubrey, that I think I may have turned to you or you may have turned to me and said, something is up here. Something is up here. They were trying to get you and I to clear that bridge. And you were very firm that you didn't put people there. And they waited until night and then moved in on that bridge. You were there and I was there, and we have memory of that. We have memory of that. Somebody didn't tell us. Somebody didn't tell us. So I'm very glad you draw that parallel.
Well, I must draw the parallel because it has become the mode of operation. And so the parallel should be drawn. But I also want to draw attention to something. I think we should stop saying private sector when we're talking about the violence that surrounds competition. I listen to you and Sherwin.
Mm-hmm.
The genuine private sector in this country is not linked to extrajudicial killings. I have argued, and I agree with Professor Clive Thomas, that gangsters, people into illegality, have their interests and they have been able to exercise control over the government and certain members in the police force. And so you have a philosophy of gangsterism that is occurring under the cover of private sector operation. I do not see them as private sector. I see them as people who have amassed wealth, have their own approach, compromise the Ghana police force, and are involved in violence that our society does not need. And so I want us to draw a distinction between a genuine private sector in which people go about legal business, seek to make money, and the criminal private sector that emerged in the post 1992 era in Guyana that is linked to the PPP political elite. And even when I say that, I know there are people in the PPP who disagree with this approach, but I must identify its link to the PPP because it is there the power is coming from. It is in that center of governmental power that is allowing rogue elements in both the private sector and the police force to collude and throw our society in violence.
Aubrey, it is now established that when the PPP was in power from 92 to 2015, a lot of these extrajudicial killings took place. There was a break on it during the 5 years of the coalition, and as soon as the PPP came back to power, we see the resumption of these killings. How does the PPP benefit from extrajudicial killings? Explain that to us.
Well, let me say this to you. I don't know that they benefit from it. They benefit from the illegal transactions that occur in the society. They benefit from the transactional nature of the government links with the illegal world. But I believe they have allowed the underworld to penetrate the state apparatus to the point where they, in some regard, lose control. And once you have that kind of situation, you will have this kind of activity in which the government will end up being complicit even if they didn't intentionally go there, because they have economic and other transactions to protect. And therefore, they themselves have the swords of Damocles over their heads. I do not believe that the PPP want Sash Saw dead, but the link to the underworld and the illegalities and the problems that emerge cause Sash Saw to be a victim of the illegalities that occur when a state links with the criminal world and some regard lose control. And there are a lot of dangers. I mean, if you study Colombia and Mexico to some extent, when the drug lords took over, the violence became uncontrollable. And that is what we have to guard against. We have to ensure that we do not arrive at a point where lawlessness is the order of the day, where money, illegality are interlinked and transcend the controllers of state and result in serious violence in the society. And that is the threat. Because don't forget, when it starts at the individual level, even involving illegalities, it also transcends into decent citizens, Because when somebody talk, the powerful feels offended, and they resort to violence, even on innocent people. There was a time in Guyana when certain people jam your vehicle, and I'm telling you this, I know this as fact. They were so powerful in their illegal domination that even though they were wrong, you were compelled to fix the vehicle. And those are the dangers that we are seeing. And I think people have got to speak out, because it is not going to stop by silence. It is only going to be dealt with if it is confronted frontally. So I am of the view that we now need to move to the level. I remember clearly in the Antoine Houston case, we went to the international level and had policemen sanctioned, like when they want to go on courses, etc. The United Nations has a compact on the behavior of law enforcement people. I believe we need to identify those persons and put the information at the international level so that they can be sanctioned. There are some people in the Guyana police force that must be sanctioned. To not sanction them is allow them to return Guyana to a troubled, murderous state. That's my view.
Your party put out a statement, and among other things, it called for an independent investigation into what happened. The assumption there is that you have no confidence in the police investigating the police. Elaborate on that for us.
There are a number of issues here. If you start by saying that there was a confrontation, and then the evidence emerged that the man was asleep, you yourself destroy your credibility. Because from jumpstart, you attempted to cover up, a la the Henry Boys and Harry Singh. Now, once you would have attempted to cover up, you almost immediately destroy your credibility. The second point is that you have a history of cover-ups. And who will trust you to not cover up? And so the PNC statement makes it clear that the local police cannot be trusted to do a fair, impartial investigation into the murder of Orrin Boston. And so we should be bringing it to the attention of the international community. We should be bringing it to the United States, to the British, the Canadians, and to the United Nations. And I find it strange that the defenders of democracy, they are saying nothing. Murder, extrajudicial killing, cannot be considered to be part of the democratic fabric. It is anti-democratic. And therefore, if you are articulators, defenders, and promoters of democracy, we expect to hear you on this issue. But we are not. And we are not because they would have achieved their objectives of installing the regime that they want, and now appear not to care what is happening with the average Guyanese, particularly the Afro-Guyanese. And I heard Irfaan Ali suggesting that Indians were killed in the process. Again, asininity. It is the superlative of stupidness. Indians are extrajudicially killed, and so they must be listed there. I don't know of anyone who said that only African Guyanese, though African Guyanese are predominantly the ones that are extrajudicially killed. They are Inlo Guyanese who are killed extrajudicially. So what Irfaan Ali tried to do was to give it a race element. And as a president who is talking about fairness, what he did is unravel to the world that he has no interest in fairness. He has no interest in one Guyana. His interest is in using race to achieve his objectives whenever it suits him. And so I am clear, I know the PNC is clear that there is need for an independent investigation because the Guyana police force is compromised, and we are going to have another cold case. Let us understand the history of this thing. When the PPP came to power in 1992, the United States had put out through an undersecretary that Guyana was not considered a problem with drugs and drug trafficking. By 1997, that had changed. And Guyana became a transshipment point. And we saw the increasing power of the drug world until the DEA or the United States became involved, and you managed to get some persons taken before the courts, and then a reduction. Now we're back at square one. Let us not forget the advent of police cover-up and extrajudicial killing has to be linked to Monica Reese.
Yes.
When in 1992 October the PPP came to power, Guyana was not a place in which executions and extrajudicial killings were the order of the day. And then we woke up one Good Friday morning with the Monica Reese case, and the police seemed handicapped to deal with it. One of the characterizing features of the PPP government is that certain cases that involve them and the people linked to them, the police is clearly instructed not to find the killers and evidence. I don't remember the young man named that was killed by Palm Court. But you tell me, in an area in which there are so many cameras, suddenly there is no footage. It does appear to me that these are all cover-ups, and we are returning to that bad place where extrajudicial killing can become the order of the day. I only hope that it doesn't.
Well, if it is to beaten back, it will have to be beaten back by the victims and by the representatives of the victims. And I think you, as an activist, your party, persons like myself, we have an important role to play in, first of all, highlighting these incidents and putting them in perspective. Because this is not a man walking up and shooting a man. This is a man with a gun in his hand with the power of the state taking the life. And that's the institutional violence that we're talking about. And so you're correct. We can't allow this to go. Aubrey, I can't let you go without asking Congress, the People's National Congress, has announced that Congress will be held no later than December 15. How are things going with that?
As far as I know, the committees have been set up and the work is progressing. We have always had historically a situation where a Congress committee is established. The Congress committee has its heads, and then they go to work and ensure a Congress comes off. I believe that process is in train.
There have always been problems with Congress and delegates and all of that, those things that come with the Congresses of big parties. I've heard the same thing with the PPP. Are you satisfied that this process is going to be as transparent as it could be?
I am satisfied that the document that was done has in it the various safeguards to ensure that we have a Congress that is properly organized and an election that is properly conducted. However, a plan is one thing. When human beings interact with that plan, you have to keep watching and monitoring to ensure that what is intended is the outcome.
You declared your candidacy for the leadership of the party here on this program. How is the campaign going?
Well, the campaign has been going fine. Even before I declared, I was in touch with party comrades, and many of them advised me to run. And so I made that declaration. Since then, I have been campaigning and doing the work that is necessary for me to become the leader of the PNCR. In my opinion, the general membership wants somebody like me to be the leader of the PNCR. I heard recently that the PPP has a plan to put up some people who to try to influence what is happening by identifying some people who they think are compromised that they can control. I'll watch that and monitor that because I remember vividly the PPP's intervention into the UF conference years ago that made a certain man leader. So, and then the man eventually ended up in the PPP. So I know they have an interest in seeing someone who they think they can control. I know for a fact that they have long concluded that they wouldn't be able to run roughshod over me. They have not been able to paint me in the corner of illegalities. And so when I started to pick up the intelligence information, I thought it followed logically. So what I'm doing is essentially putting together the data and observing those who come into the race, who are supporting them, why they are supporting them. And at the right time, I will explain to the party membership what is happening in terms of the PPP attempting to influence what happens in the PNC. But I'm convinced that the comrades in the party is looking for a particular type of leadership, which I think I can deliver, and they believe I can. So it's a question of continuing the work and outlining a clear vision and plans for the development of the party, and then work with the coalition members to ensure we have a functioning coalition and ensure we take back government from the People's Progressive Party.
Apart from being a political activist, you're a student of politics, and some of us have argued that a strong PNC, a vibrant PNC, is necessary for the safety of Guyana. If we can borrow the balance of power theory and bring it to Guyana, if you don't have a strong party on the one side, the other party, the PPP, thinks that it has all the space to do what it wants to do. And people have argued that in the absence of a united PNC after the election, the PPP has been really getting away with a lot of stuff. Do you share that view that a strong PNC is really important for balance of power?
Yes, I've always shared that view. In fact, I share the general view that if democracy is to work, you need counterbalancing forces, you need
Yeah.
checks and balance. And therefore, the PNCR constitutes a counterbalance and a check on power. And to that extent, a strong PNC is needed. And that is why the PPP focuses on destroying the PNCR. That is why they focus on going into the PNCR communities with the aim of bribing people, etc. That is why they focus on sport, particularly football, where the African Guyanese community is predominant. And so I understand what they set out to do, and we're prepared to take them on and deal with it. I understand Charles Ramson, who is no lover of African Guyanese, or else the Guard, it is alleged that the Guard are not is not allowed to enter the facilities there. And so it is clear that his interest is not promoting equality, etc. His interest is to use African Guyanese community to gain some amount of advantage in those areas with the aim of defeating the People's National Congress reform. It will not happen. We will do the work to ensure that Ramson is dealt with in the way he should be dealt with. Um, we believe that there is scope for Guyana to develop, but it has to involve all the people of Guyana. There's a vision which says that all Guyanese could be treated equally. There's a vision which says that we do not have to bribe people to get support, but if we genuinely pursue the development of our people, then support will follow. And so I am aware of the need for a strong PNCR. I am aware of the need to be a counterbalance to the PPP. And I am aware that we have to begin to take the action to stop the likes of Ramson using state resources to achieve political ends.
Aubrey, the younger generation may not remember that you were part of a group within the PNCR in the 1990s. I know McAllister, Sherwood Lowe were part of that group. I may be missing some names. But you all worked very hard on the issue of power sharing. In fact, you all coined the term shared governance. We, the old timers on the WPA, we use power sharing, and you guys came up with shared governance, but same thing. And that you all were able to push party leader Desmond Hoyt to that position. He was a reluctant traveler. I remember he saying the idea was a protean idea. I know you remember that.
Protean and nebula.
There you go. Yes. And then the Congress in 2002, a few months before he died, he said power sharing is an idea whose time had come. And we all thought that that was a moment, a pivotal moment in our country's history. Do you still believe passionately in shared governance?
Yes, I do believe that Guyana has to find a system of governance in which all ethnic groups feel they are part and parcel of the governance apparatus in the country. Unfortunately, the extremes of the PPP tend to cause our support base to say no to
Yes.
shared governance.
Yeah.
But I believe when you're given leadership, you have to give leadership. And so while I understand the sentiments, I am prepared to do what is required to ensure that we develop a system of governance in which all our people feel comfortable. And I believe there are some areas that we can start with. Um, Power sharing is a much narrower term than shared governance, because you can have in shared governance, for instance, I think at some stage we have to consider in this country a mechanism by which the budget cannot be arbitrarily passed and exclude villages, even if we have to put in place a weighted majority. So that there must be negotiations. You know, everybody bring down power sharing to half to PPP, half to PNC. There's more to shared governance. There are governance mechanisms that you can use to put a check on one party domination. And I believe in the first phase, we will have to put that check on one party domination. For instance, I believe that the regional system has potential. But for that potential to be realized, you need some amount of laws that will give power to the region. One of the disadvantages of a unitary system like we have is that the central government could come in and end up dictating and destroy local democracy. But I believe once we can push local democracy in a particular direction, it can also constitute a mechanism for shared governance and power sharing. So it is an issue that we have to look at. Um, it will demand a lot of work because, like I said, the People's Progressive Party's behavior against African Guyanese would have caused many African Guyanese to just want to see their backs and not interested in any system in which they are involved. But those are hurdles we have to overcome in the future.
And that's a tease, Aubrey. There is a request, there are requests for you to come back and to field questions from the audience with me basically moderating. They use this as a tongue all style. And I want to get a commitment from you to do it. And
I have no problem. I've never shied away from the press. I've never shied away from the public. In fact, I believe if you're going to do good decision making, you have to be linked to the public and have a feel from them, be responsive to their concerns, and give leadership where you think their concerns might not be rooted in reality or practicality.
Yes. And so to you, the audience, all the questions that you're asking me to ask Aubrey, in a couple of weeks, in short order, we are going to bring Aubrey back. We're going to have you come into what they call the chat room or whatever, and you get to ask.
I am willing to appease them now by answering one.
Well, one of the questions is what I asked you there just now about shared governance, right?
Okay.
And so we'll have Aubrey come back, and you will get to ask Aubrey questions directly. We're going to try to do that in a couple of weeks, and then have Aubrey come back. Aubrey, until then, any closing thoughts for the audience? They'll come out in big numbers tonight. Our numbers are up tonight, more than normal. Yes.
I would say to all that we have to recognize that Ghana is in a bad place. We are seeing incompetence on the part of the PPP, as is manifest in COVID, the handling of the economy, the high cost of living, etc. And then we see the divisiveness, which is affecting Guyana. And then the corruption, which will, even though we have become an oil producing country, Guyana is in danger of not benefiting because of the level of corruption that the PPP is involved in. So all I would say to the viewing audience is let us organize, do the work, and ensure we get a new voters list, an early election, and restore Guyana to some form of good governance.
Restore Guyana to some form of good governance. Aubrey Norton, thanks for coming on tonight and to sharing your thoughts with us. And I will arrange with you to come back to do that town hall style meeting, question and answer with the audience. So thank you very much.
And a good evening to your viewing audience.
Yes, and thank you. And you've been such a good audience tonight. I end with remembering Imran Khan, who died today, unfortunately, of COVID-19. I have said on this program over and over again, COVID-19 is real. I desist from telling people what to do because I know that how to deal with the COVID-19 is a very contentious issue, and I don't want to add to it. But when people like Imran pass away, it is not that we forget all those others, those ordinary people who have died from COVID, but it highlights for us that we have a problem on our hand. I think on Thursday what I'll do is that I put a panel together for us to reflect on the life of Imran Khan. He was the information czar. He was one of the leaders of the AFC. He played a very important role in bringing the coalition to power. And while the coalition was in power, he also played a pivotal role. And so perhaps on Thursday, I will hold a kind of wake, if you will, because to reflect on Imran's life. You know, he was not a number one leader, top leader, but I can tell you, and those of you who know that, there you go. When an East Indian comes on the side of the PNC, comes on the side of the political divide that is dominated by Africans, it calls for a lot of courage. And I always take my hat off to people like Imran Khan who have that courage to stand up for principle and to go beyond race and ethnicity. It is unfortunate that such a young life has been taken away from us. So on Thursday, we'll get a chance to reflect on his life, the meaning of his political life and his political contributions, and what is unfortunate and untimely death teaches us. Until Thursday, David, I'm signing off. I just want to pay my tribute to Stella, cousin Stella, who was buried today in Buxton, a relatively young woman, not quite 70, dying. And for those of us who have known her in the village, we are, of course, grieving. We are grieving. She's been laid to rest today, and may our soul rest in eternal peace. That's it. Until Thursday, good night and be good.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhines6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.